What are you buying?
Resident Evil 4 was a game that I thought I would not enjoy, but I ended up loving it. While it may have not been as scary as some of the earlier titles, the TV I played it on definitely made up for that. It was a 1984 Sylvania, and with its shoddy definition and desaturation, it made the game all the more frightening. The occasional static was an added bonus as well. TV aside, Resident Evil 4 held an adventure that I was not expecting at all. And would it not have been for a certain character in particular, I don't think I would have survived the horde that awaited me. There was a certain person that always just happened to be present when I needed him the most, and he was always someone I could rely on in a pinch. But other than that, his character was a complete mystery. The man I'm referring to is the Merchant, one of Resident Evil 4's most iconic characters. While most people take the Merchant at face value and then forget about him as they run to the next area guns a-blazing, I like to think there's more to him than meets the eye. I mean, just who is he exactly? Why is he in such a desolate area dealing arms, and whose side is he really on? All of these questions and more add to the mysterious aura that surrounds the Merchant. To start, we do have some reference material provided to us that offers some detail about this character. In the Resident Evil 4 digital archives, it states that obviously from his appearance he is a ganado, but he doesn't really see outsiders as a threat, and will deal with anyone as long as he is paid for it. I always assumed the Merchant was infected as well, just based off the color of his eyes during the nighttime hours. Like most of those who are infected, his eyes glow red in the darkness. If the Merchant is a ganado though, why is he resistant to the calling of Saddler? Most outsiders are condemned by the ganados, but the Merchant seems to have a mind of his own. There's also the possibility he's an outsider himself. His accent is definitely not of Hispanic descent. Does this mean he's from another region, and he's only in this area to deal arms? From his character, it seems he is impartial to whatever is going on in the region. Some of the enemies within the game also carry weapons that could have been from his shop. So does that mean he's dealing weapons to both sides? It kind of feels a bit like Drebin from Metal Gear Solid 4, where they are merely a middleman, and profit is simply profit, regardless of whom they are helping. Another part that reminds me of Drebin is the frequency of the Merchant throughout the game. There's a few different ways we can look at this though. The first is that the Merchant is exactly like the group Drebin, and has many operatives who deal arms all under a similar identity. This would help explain how he is seemingly everywhere. This might also explain how you can kill the Merchant over, and over, and over again. And yet, he still shows up, happy as ever, to sell you his arsenal. The second take on this would be that if the Merchant is simply one man with an extensive series of shortcuts. This paints an entirely different picture though, because now that means he is simply faking his death whenever he is struck down. A normal human wouldn't be able to do that. And if he indeed does have the parasite, then that means he could possibly be above Mendez and Salazar in terms of control and power. It's kind of crazy to think about, but he'd be under Saddler's control if he wasn't. It's hard to tell though because the newer renditions of the game feature a non-canon weapon called the PRL-412, which normally one-hits anything that has a parasite, boss monsters included. But of course, the Merchant is a different story, as the shot goes right through him without hurting him. Does this mean he actually isn't infected? Some people argue that he might wear red contacts, but it's definitely an eye glow and not contacts, which is very similar to Wesker, and could open up a world of possibilities for whom he is tied to. It's a stretch, but who's to say he wasn't planted there by Wesker to provide weapons to Leon so that it would make it easier for Ada to steal the Plaga sample. At the time, Ada had not yet betrayed Wesker, and it was unsure whether or not Krauser would have been able to get the sample as of yet. That could make things really interesting, but again, we might just be grasping at straws. One last thing I want to touch on is if the merchant is actually just a character that is hinted at in the game. If we assume the merchant isn't more than one person, and that they have a network of passages that allow them to get around the area, then an in-game note may offer a totally different perspective on the whole thing. Mendez, the chief of the village, writes several notes throughout the first part of the game that Leon finds. One note in particular talks about Luis Serra, and that his grandfather had taught him about a secret passage that he could be hiding in. It also says that Luis's grandfather is no longer alive either, but in my eyes, this sort of raises a red flag. Faking one's death in Resident Evil isn't new at all, and even Krauser does it to join up with Wesker. And seeing how the merchant can be killed repeatedly and still come back, assuming it isn't more than one person, then the merchant could very well be this grandfather figure. The merchant's most prominent shops are located in the underground passages, where you can see his full arsenal on display. This might possibly hint to the fact that the merchant stores all his weapons underground, possibly by the lake. Due to him appearing in most of the secret passages within the game, where followers of Sadler are not present, it wouldn't be too far of a stretch to say he has the same knowledge that Luis's grandfather had. Or that he's indeed Luis's grandfather, who has powers that we simply do not understand. But now that I've finished my haunted rambling, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. So, what are your thoughts on the merchant? Is he part of a group who launders guns and profits off of conflict? Is he Luis's grandfather who faked his own death and started selling the next step up from hunting gear? Or is he possibly affiliated with Wesker, or has an ability that is far greater in power than he leads on? Let me know in the comments below. Personally, I like to believe that he is Luis's grandfather, but it's hard to say one way or another which of these scenarios is the truth. Thanks for tuning in to our gun-toting analysis of the mysterious merchant. If you'd like to join us on our YouTube voyage and help us solve some more haunted mysteries, then the subscribe button is just what you're looking for. Thanks for watching, guys and gals, and until our next video, cheers. You've made it to the end of the video, but wait, your quest isn't over yet. If you're not too creeped out, I have a couple other spooktastic videos you may enjoy. You may want to check out my video on the origin of ghosts in Luigi's Mansion, or join in the scary debate of whether a Re-Dead is a corpse or made of clay. There's a slew of other videos on my channel too, so regardless, I hope you enjoy.